Hey, ladies, welcome to episode 51 of the podcast. I'm really excited to dive into this topic today. It actually came from a conversation with a really great coach friend of mine. And we were having this conversation about motivation and about what we're seeing and hearing from some very specific influencers, authors, and the word shame came up. And I knew I had to talk about this. Hey, before I dive in, I would love you to come follow the podcast on Instagram. Yeah, maybe you're following my business account, but you haven't clicked follow on the podcast. So to do that, you can head to the show notes. I'm going to put it right there for you. But if you're on Instagram right now while you're listening, just search for Health, Life, and More for Women. You'll find me. Click follow. Come say hi. I want to make sure I get to say hi back. All right, let's dive in.
Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified life coach, mom of four, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in. Let's get started.
All right, so right away, I just want to be clear that I do a lot of work with motivation. I mean, in the work that I do with my clients, that word comes up often. The reason why is they feel that they are the problem, their lack of motivation for why their health isn't what they want it to be. And when we start breaking that down, of course, we really get to the root of the lies, the misinformation, the really just damaging messages of diet culture. It's not for their lack of motivation. Now, I'm also a mom of four, so motivation to do things comes into play a lot for that as well, right? I feel like I'm this almost circus leader. My husband would say it's a circus of cats, just trying to herd little children around. I mean, they're not little anymore, but this circus leader, go with me here. And I have to motivate those within this crazy circus tent to do things. Now, that's not an easy task. The more kids we had, the harder it seemed to get, not easier, because they're all different and they're all motivated by different things, and they're motivated to do things for very different reasons. You know, you have to take a different approach pretty much with each of them. Now, this conversation I had with my coach friend, we were talking about just motivation within the context, of course, of parenting, our own lives, working with clients. And there is this one particular author. I guess she's, highly influential over women. And it just struck me that I believe her greatest form of motivation is shame. I just hear it again and again in the messages that she's putting out there. It's so much shame. If you're not doing this, there's something wrong with you. Here's the thing about shame. Shame's goal is to make someone feel ashamed, right? So it targets who a person is. It's not targeting what they do or what they don't do, but something inside of them. So for example, if you just tell your child, you're a bad kid, that's shame. Now, if you say to your kid, hey, when you knocked that vase down and broke it, that was a really poor decision. Like, I don't appreciate you did that. You're in trouble. Like, I would say I don't appreciate it. I'd probably just yell at my kids when they were little and be like, what you did, right? So what you did was the wrong thing. Not that you are wrong, that you are bad. The action was bad. That's, of course, where guilt comes in this example to the child, right? The child feels guilty for the action because there's values and this internal moral compass, and also wanting, your parents not to be mad at you. That's guilt. That's not shame. Shame comes from a direct attack on who a person is. their being. And this is where this conversation really was surrounding, was I kept hearing these messages about who people are, that there's something intrinsically wrong with them for not working out, for choosing, certain types of foods or not choosing certain type of food. That's shame. And I want to be clear up front, and you probably already get this. Shame is not a motivator. Shame is being used as a guise of motivation. It is not a motivator. The actual effects of shame are devastating. Shame is this lifelong weight that people carry with them, literally leading to things like extreme fear, anxiety, depression, isolation. I don't even want to leave the house. I feel so shameful because I couldn't stick to that diet. That's the messages I was seeing. And I wasn't alone. I wasn't speaking to another, health coach, but another life coach who was hearing these same messages and hearing what I was hearing. Sometimes when you think like, is that just me? Am I just really hypersensitive to this kind of stuff? No. Okay, yes, I'm hypersensitive to it, but it wasn't just me interpreting that way. It was clear to see that shame was being used as a motivator, that there was something internally, intrinsically wrong with you, something about you of why you could not commit to working out, commit to some diet, commit to moving your body, commit to drinking water, whatever it was. It was an attack on the person, not the action. I really did subscribe to the no excuses mentality for a really long time. Do you want to know what that is? That is leading into shame. The idea that you have no excuse. Now, I could tell you 600 reasons that really are not valid of why I don't do something or couldn't do something or didn't do something, whatever. However, there are valid reasons that come up. There are real things that happen in real time, in real life, that prevent women or men from being able to do the things they actually do want to do. So to flip the script here, let's talk about motivation. Let's talk about what are better motivators. I believe what I'm about to share can apply to any situation, whether you are in a position of leadership, whether you're a parent, whether you're in a position like me where you're a coach and you have clients, or you're a practitioner and you have patients. I think these can apply anywhere. So first, keep in mind, there are extrinsic motivators and intrinsic. So those extrinsic ones, the things outside of you, right? Maybe that is your boss telling you, you have to get this project done, and here's the date, this is when it's due. That is an extrinsic motivator to get the project done. We use this a lot, of course, with parenting our kids. I see it whether my kids were toddlers or even as teens. There's a lot of extrinsic motivation happening here. Now that intrinsic, this is really where we're talking about inspiration or what aligns with your values, right? It becomes very individual to somebody what an intrinsic motivator would be. So what motivates us? What can you use? Here's the first thing I thought of. The first thing that I believe serves me as a coach, serves me as a parent, serves me in any capacity is doing things alongside someone else. Doing it with them. Not just cheering them on, but actually participating. I mean, I've heard stories, even from my husband who works, for corporate America, that when the boss comes alongside and says, I'm right there with you. I'm in the trenches. I'm working on this project right there with you. I can feel the same struggles you're feeling. I can see the same, issues you're having. And I can also celebrate what you're doing. It is hugely motivating to the person on the other side, to the employee. I know my clients have that experience with me. I am right alongside you, walking through this journey, digging deeper, working on increasing intuition. So another thing that would motivate is using appreciation. I mean, come on. I believe we could do so much better in this area. Showing someone appreciation, knowing you are appreciated, this is that intrinsic part. But knowing you are appreciated for what you've done, how you showed up, the task you completed, whatever it is, appreciation is huge. I mean, you know that warm feeling, like I just made someone's day. Oh, hugely motivating. Now, when I think about extrinsic, what comes up for me is money. Right? Money is a huge motivator. And especially having teenagers, one who wants to, buy a car in the next year, this is a huge motivator, money. But I would just clump things like success and recognition, those awards at work. Those things are effective and healthy motivators. Here's the biggest one. Are you ready for it? This is like, to me, the best motivator, the best thing to keep you motivated, no matter what situation. I would say I would guarantee you they'd probably agree if they dug deeper into what's really motivating them. If you are attached and understand and see clearly the reason why you're doing something, you are highly motivated to keep doing that thing. Think about that for a minute. If you are deeply understanding the why behind what you're doing, you have this, talk about intrinsic emotional attachment to doing it. It's amazing. I want to bring up my husband again because he works in corporate America. And when you work in that type of environment, it's very different from the work that I do. And you might not get the why. You might just be told, right? There's that extrinsic, boss telling you, here's your task, go do it. But there is a deep desire to understand the why. Even if you hate the project, even if you dislike the type of work, even if you're just like, oh, I'm doing the same thing repetitive, if you have a deep understanding of the why, it motivates you to show up for that mundane task. It motivates you to show up again and again when you're like, I don't see this going anywhere. You have motivation intrinsically because of the why. Think about that as a parent. Now listen, I use the phrase because I said so. There is power in that phrase. I don't knock it. It's a good one. And sometimes we need to use it. It's okay. There is nothing wrong with because I said so. Sometimes you are just the authority and that's just the way it is. On the flip side of that, oftentimes what I discover from my own children is when they understand the why behind something, it is more motivating for them to either continue or to not do something. I'd say it's more in the continuation. And here's the thing. Before we squash our kids, before we just repeatedly tell them because I said so, which most of us probably heard growing up, when my kids are young, they ask the question, why? And I think we often think as parents, this is an act of defiance, but I believe strongly this is a desire for the intrinsic motivation. If you know the why, now you may still not like it. My kids, will ask this question of why do we have to clean the bathroom? And I can give them the why behind it and several different reasons, for company coming over, germs, cleanliness, and just having a space that you appreciate and the gratitude for that, et cetera, et cetera. There might be one that they attach onto, right? Like, oh, that makes sense. Like I get the why behind it. When their grandparents show up, they don't want them seeing this disgusting mess. Maybe that's the one they grab. It doesn't mean they like cleaning the bathroom, right? I have not met a child yet who's like, woohoo, I can't wait to clean the bathroom. However, they show up for it because of the why. This is powerful. This to me is the greatest motivator. The first thing I do when I meet with my clients, that first session, we dig into this deeply. Getting to the why behind their health choices, why behind becoming an intuitive eater, why behind the goals they're setting for themselves, it is a game changer for them. It's intrinsic, right? So it's attaching to something that they're inspired by, that they value. And on top of it, it's the thing that keeps them focused. It's the greatest motivator. I honestly would argue that point till I'm blue in the face. I believe knowing the reason why is the greatest level of motivation for anything, for anyone. Whether it's my 9-year-old kid or talking to my 60-year-old client, it is a great motivator, the best. And what a contrast from using shame. Because shame is not a motivator. Shame on the surface, remember, it's got this guise, it's this mask of motivation. But in the long run, shame is leaving you with a weight on you. It's leading to anxiety and depression and fear and feeling not worthy enough, feeling like you are not enough, that you can't have an excuse, you can't have a reason. It's so different. When you understand the why, when you're so deeply rooted in that, you will stay motivated. It will draw you back in every single time. I hope that this episode spoke to you. I hope that you can take some time and evaluate motivation in your life, how you're being motivated and how you are motivating others. If you did love this episode, I would be so grateful if you would take the time, if you're on iTunes, on your Apple device, to leave a review. Here's the thing. If you leave a review, other people go and read that and they choose to either listen to the podcast or not. And you know what? I want this to get out to as many women as possible. Hey, and I didn't forget about you guys out there. I know you're listening too, and my heart is so appreciative for that. Anyway, I really enjoyed sharing this with you today, and I can't wait for next week. Until then. Hey ladies, I want to let you know that I've partnered with Miss Sunshine Shades. They make the most amazing blue light blocking glasses. They make them for men, women, and your kids. So I know a lot of us have our kids at home staring at computer screens right now. These glasses are exactly what you're looking for. I love mine. I use them all the time, and so do my kids, especially my kiddo who has chronic migraines, no headaches at all. And she's on that computer for homeschooling a lot. If you go into the show notes, you can grab my discount code, which is Jennifer15, and get 15% off your order today. I think you're going to love them just as much as I do.